This is what college football looks like, and it's the same everywhere. Good times eating, drinking, and we all sort of pretend like we know what the hell's gonna happen. So even though I'm in New York and not on campus, all season long, I'm eating, drinking, and figuring out what the hell's gonna happen in the games of the week. This is Easy Call. Big breaking news. Giant chunks of delicious lobster being put into bread for New York's enjoyment. This feels like the right place to talk Week 8. Okay, Week 8, we're going all over the country, but the big bright lights are in the ACC, the Atlantic Coast, a coast I love here at Lobster Joint. So, Florida State giving 3 points on the road at Clemson. This is the big one in the ACC. The Florida State keys, that offensive line needs to protect Jameis Winston, need to be good. Clemson has improved in rushing the passer this year. Vic Beasley, keep him on lock. Number 2, that secondary is going to have to run with 3 receivers all game long. They haven't played a game where they'd have to play against 3 top wideouts. Adam Humphries, Sammy Watkins might be the best in college football, and Martavis Bryant, all huge threats. And this might be the big one. Clemson's a really loud place to play. Jameis Winston's still a redshirt freshman, hasn't dealt with a crowd like this that he will at Memorial Stadium. You got to make big plays early on in this game, take the crowd out of it, and don't make those mistakes. Don't make those false starts. Keys for Clemson. That defensive front needs to get in the backfield and make Jameis Winston upset. He can get rattled a little bit. We've seen it happen at times. Number 2, they need to get something on the ground. They haven't been able to do it thus far consistently like they have these past few seasons. You've got to make Florida State honest and get more of those Knowles in the box. And finally, coaching. Chad Morris, as good an offensive coordinator as we've seen, they haven't been finishing drives. They haven't been ending in points. They were pretty crappy on third down against Boston College last week. You can't be sloppy against Florida State. So, Florida State with the week off, I'm going to give those points. I'm going to say Florida State's a touchdown better here, 34-27, a really fun game. They're taking the headliner, just like the headliner here at Lobster Joint. Look, a lot of people do lobster rolls. Not a lot of people add bacon and avocado to their lobster rolls. That's just a thing of beauty. That's art. And this art is going into my belly. Look at how much lobster we're talking about here. Hey guy, look at how much. We've got the lobster salad, perfect amount of mayo, crunch celery, creaminess avocado, saltiness bacon. Just bacon swooping in at the bottom. Bacon. Okay, now let's fly across the country to the West Coast. I miss you, Best Coast. Stanford giving 6.5 points at home against UCLA, a big Pac-12 matchup. Stanford coming off a loss. UCLA has looked sloppy at times. Keys for UCLA here as underdogs on the road. The running game, they need something. 36 yards against Cal, completely unacceptable. Injuries in the backfield, they need to do better. The offensive line, very young on the right side. You can get away with that against some Pac-12 teams. Not so much with Stanford. Trent Murphy, Shane Scove, they'll eat you alive. And finally, the third key, the defensive front for UCLA. They might have the single best defensive player in the country in Anthony Barr. Cassius Marsh, he'll punch a guy. You need to be able to take advantage of Stanford's offensive lines. Not so good on 3rd and 4th down against Utah last week. There's an opportunity there for UCLA. Keys for Stanford. David Shaw and the coaching staff got to avoid that letdown spot. Losing at Utah hurts. Playing against UCLA, that can be compounded. Got to keep the focus with the Stanford players. Numero dos. Turnovers. Stanford, for being a top 10 team, top 15 team, they do not force a lot of turnovers against a UCLA offense like that. Got to flip the field. And finally, depth of offensive skill positions. We knew this was going to be an issue for Stanford coming into the season. Ty Montgomery gets it done every week. But who else? The running back stable needs to be deeper. Devin Kajuste, fun to say, got to play more often. I'm going to go, because it's Stanford, because UCLA still has those issues on offense, even though I love Brett Hundley, I'm going to go Stanford here at home to win 28-20. I like that defense enough to take advantage. I like this crispy oyster roll enough to take advantage. I'm gonna go lobster ale, mixing the lobster ale with the crispy oysters, because I live dangerously. That's what I do. You're falling out, it's okay. It's a bounty. So this is weird. It's taken 3 games to get to the SEC, but the game of the week in the Southeastern Conference, Florida giving 3 points, going to Missouri, staying on the road after that LSU loss last weekend. This one's gonna be an interesting one because Mizzou's quarterback is out. Florida can't play offense. Keys for Florida right here. The defensive front, stop Missouri up front. They have Matty Mock. You got to disturb him early, make Henry Josie obsolete in this game. Next, Florida needs to be able to run the ball and avoid passing downs, absolute passing downs for Tyler Murphy. They don't have a big, creative offense. Just be big and dumb and run the ball all the time with Mac Brown and Matt Jones. And the third key,
Coaching. Be a little bit more creative. There are 2 losses on the season for the Gators. Sure, whatever. The SEC East is a mess. There's injuries all over the place. Open things up a little. See what Solomon Patton's a really good wide receiver. Next, keys for Missouri. Matty Mock needs to be able, I haven't said it, stay clean. Turnover free against a really good Gator defense. Number 2, this goes on the coaches and the X's and O's in this game. Got to find a way for Henry Josey to make a difference in this game. Florida's run defense so good. Henry Josey, we saw him against Georgia, so very, very good. And third, got to be able to stop Florida on the ground. We've seen teams, we saw Arkansas do it, stop Florida on the ground, have to be able to get pressure. It's not a huge defensive line, but you make this Florida team almost one-dimensional, forcing them to throw. At home, could be interesting. Missouri beating Georgia last week goes a long way. I think Florida's too good to lose 2 weeks in a row in the SEC. I'm going Gators here. I've gotta. That defense is too good. And just like when I see filet of fish on a menu, I gotta go filet of fish. Look at this hunk of fish we're talking about here. We're not talking about a filet. It's a hunk of fish, if we're gonna be honest. Got a salad, got the cherry tomato game, real strong here. They did the batter correctly. You don't want it too thick, just like with the oysters. Great tartar. I'm making a mess of this thing. Great tang to the tartar. It's the name of my memoirs.
Let the bass kick.
So let's just go ahead and stay in the SEC because why not? We're already there. Texas A&M hosting Auburn, a kind of a feisty Auburn team, but Texas A&M still favored by 13.5. Keys for Auburn. Coaching. Texas A&M not all that good with their front 7. Don't try to get too complicated. Run directly at those gentlemen. Number 2, youth for Auburn. Carl Lawson has shown himself to be already an SEC top-level defensive end. Carl Lawson trying to chase down Johnny Manziel. I don't feel good about being chased down by Carl Lawson, do you? And finally, the road. Kyle Field, really tough place to play. Auburn hasn't been out on the road a lot, but when they have been, LSU, they've been pretty decent through the air, on the ground. Ignore the noise, play focused football. Keys for Texas A&M, health. Johnny Manziel, how's the knee? He came back with a brace and looked fine. Is it gonna swell over the course of a week? Need to be able to be very careful on that knee. Number 2, running backs. Take the load off of Johnny Manziel. That means you, Ben Molina. That means you, Trey Carson. Got to be able to succeed on the ground. They've been somewhat inconsistent, still very good talent-wise there. And third, that defensive front. We mentioned how bad they've been. That's going to keep Auburn in the game if they're not effective in this game. Got to get a push, got to hold their ground, or else it's going to have another shootout on your hands. I don't think Texas A&M loses this game. It's at home. But I think Auburn's talented enough. Carl Lawson scares me enough. I think it's a 10-point game. I'm going to say 38-28 here. I think it's a lot of entertainment here. This is a lot of soup coming my way. Haven't done soup on the show. We got lobster corn bisque. You got a big old claw on top. Ooh. Depth of flavor, very nice. Super big college football, underrated college football food. Get a big old cauldron out. And the last game, a throwback game to when a game like this actually mattered. USC traveling to South Bend. Sorry about that, USC. But Notre Dame hosting them, 3-point favorites. Keys for the Trojans, Cody Kessler. Just be pretty good. He's been average at best this season, has made some big plays. 50% not going to cut it against this Notre Dame team. Be better than that. Number 2, the coaching staff. Brand new since Lane Kiffin is gone. Coach O had a bit of a letdown in the second half against Arizona, turned BJ Danker into a legitimate quarterback. Can't have that, can't turn Tommy Rees into a legitimate quarterback. That would be awful. And finally, depth issues, especially on defense. This is a beat-up team. On offense, Marquise Lee, we don't know if he's going to play. He's saying he will. On defense, that front is beat up. The secondary is young. Got to be able to figure out a rotation there. Minimal depth, but do something. Let's go to the Notre Dame side of things. First of all, quarterback play. Tommy Rees, get the ball to TJ Jones, Tavares Daniels, get it behind that young, inexperienced secondary. You can do that against USC. We saw Arizona do it. Number 2, running backs. Cam McDaniel, George Atkinson, do something. You're able to run. Kadeem Carey did it last week. He's much better than anything Notre Dame has, but do something on the ground. You can do it against USC. Sort of. And number 3, that Notre Dame secondary. Still very much a question mark, but they have the advantage of having that awesome front with Tuitt and Nix and Shembo and Day and all sorts of awesome pieces, but that secondary can still let people behind them even with that advantage. I can't pick USC on the road here. I like what USC is able to do, but I'm going Notre Dame here to win by 5. Ugly. Let's go 22-17 in a game that I don't think anybody really wants to watch. Well, I guess they'll kind of flip to it. But I have crustaceans in front of me. I want to answer Twitter questions. I'm going to marry, what do we call, we'll call them questations. Yeah, it's a lobster claw Bloody Mary. There's a lot of seafood flair, vegetable flair going on in this bad boy. I don't even know where to attack this. You got some olives, you got pickle, lime, lemon, claw, celery. Here it is. Ooh, everybody likes a good soak. I don't know where I'm going with that, but it's time for Twitter. First question comes from Matt Ufford. Ufford? I can never remember. Best type of fish, grilled or fried for fish tacos? I'm in the minority here. I like a good grilled fish because with the fried, you run the chance of having a batter that's too thick. It's all about balance for me. You gotta taste that crema, you gotta taste that slaw, you gotta taste that salsa, like a good offense. Second part of Uford. This is a legitimately good college football question. Is there a scenario where both Clemson and Florida State both choke away their national title chances? Yes, there is. Virginia Tech. Other side of the ACC, might have the best defense in the country, so Florida State and Clemson going to beat the crap out of each other this coming weekend, but Virginia Tech could be waiting there in the ACC championship game and just end all hopes for either one of these teams. Beware the Hokies. Real strong. Next, this is a great one. This comes from Roger Sherman. Which coach of a top 25 team could catch the most salmon in his mouth like a bear? That's a question that's on the minds of college football fans. Nick Saban would catch one and be very happy with that process. Boring. David Shaw, Stanford Bears, probably too classy. A Stanford Bear doesn't catch fish. A Stanford Bear is given fish. I'm going to say Will Muschamp. I think Will Muschamp, not even a bear version of Will Muschamp. I'm just saying Coach Will Muschamp, Florida Gators, is probably really good at catching salmon jumping out of the air in his bare mouth. Bear. All right, there it is, week 8. First of all, get to Lobster Joint Lower East Side as soon as humanly possible. Second of all, 21-12-2 on the season, still making you that sweet cash. This week, Florida State, Stanford, Florida. Still gonna go with Auburn. Notre Dame, feel terrible about that Notre Dame pick. Can't get the image of Will Muschamp catching salmon in his mouth out of my head. Lobster Joint. Actually, can I get a coffee to go? Perfect, thank you. See you next time.